Someone's running a gas-powered generator inside their garage with the door closed. Hour 6 of the blackout, and you can smell the exhaust from 3 houses down. Sweet, acrid carbon monoxide mixing with gasoline fumes, announcing to everyone within a quarter mile that your neighbor has power, has fuel, and apparently has the survival instincts of a lemming with a death wish. You watch from your darkened window as shadows move toward the sound, drawn like moths to a very stupid, very loud flame. The generator chugs away, a mechanical dinner bell ringing out, "Free supplies here, come and get it," in 2-stroke engine language. 30 minutes later, the generator goes quiet. Not because someone turned it off, because the operator is unconscious on the garage floor, brain starved of oxygen, while his family sleeps upstairs and strangers kick in his front door. The CDC reports that portable generator use causes an average of 430 deaths and 50,000 emergency room visits annually from carbon monoxide poisoning. During Hurricane Katrina, carbon monoxide poisoning from generators killed more people in the immediate aftermath than the storm surge in some parishes. Your neighbor just became a statistic and a loot box in the same stupid move. But here's the thing that should terrify you more than the incompetence. His mistake just painted a target on your entire street. Those shadows moving toward the generator sound, they're not going to stop at one house. They're going to check every door, every window, every potentially occupied structure within the blast radius of that idiot's announcement. Because if one house has a generator, maybe others do too. Maybe you do too. And now you're dealing with the fallout of someone else's catastrophic stupidity while you sit in your properly secured, properly darkened, properly silent home that was invisible 5 minutes ago. Welcome to the reality nobody talks about in those cute prepper forums where everyone assumes their neighbors are competent. They're not. Most people will die in the first 72 hours not because they didn't prepare, but because they prepared wrong. They bought the gear, stockpiled the food, downloaded the PDFs, and then proceeded to advertise their preparedness like they're running a post-apocalyptic garage sale, and when they go down, they're taking you with them. This isn't a guide about stocking MRES or purifying water. You can find that basic survival garbage anywhere. This is about the silent psychological warfare of appearing worthless while being invaluable. The art of making looters, neighbors, and desperate humans bypass your house like it's already been cleaned out, like there's nothing there worth the risk, like you're just another casualty in a neighborhood full of them. Because when society collapses, and it will collapse faster than you think, the deadliest threat isn't zombies or radiation or government tyranny. It's the person 3 doors down who didn't prepare and now knows you did. The generator across the street finally stops. You hear voices, breaking glass, a woman screaming, and you sit in the dark, grateful for once that you're invisible, counting the mistakes that separate the survivors from the stories. We're going to cover 15 of them, 15 silent tricks that make looters skip your house instantly, 15 ways to become tactically worthless while remaining strategically valuable, 15 reasons why the best defense isn't a gun, it's looking like you have nothing worth shooting you for. Let's start with the mistake that kills more preppers than starvation. Mistake number 1, the light betrayal. Human vision is drawn to contrast, and light and darkness is the highest contrast signal in nature. The Purkinje effect describes how our rod cells, the photoreceptors responsible for night vision, become 10,000 times more sensitive after 30 minutes of dark adaptation. This means anyone who's been sitting in darkness for 3 days doesn't just notice your lights, they're physiologically incapable of not noticing them. Your lit windows trigger the same neural response as a fire in the wilderness triggered in our ancestors: attention, interest, approach behavior. The psychology is even more damaging. Studies in resource scarcity show that visible abundance in contexts of deprivation triggers aggressive acquisition behavior. A 2011 study published in Psychological Science found that participants experiencing scarcity showed increased attention to resources and decreased inhibition toward obtaining them, even when acquisition required rule-breaking. Translation: when people are scared and hungry, seeing that you have what they lack doesn't make them respect your preparedness. It makes them desperate, angry, and willing to take risks they'd never take under normal conditions. Your lights don't say, "Stay away, I'm defended." They say, "Come and get it, I have what you need." The tactical reality compounds the psychological. OPSEC, operational security, is the military principle that information denied is advantage gained. Every signal you emit is intelligence you're handing your adversaries. Light discipline was so critical in World War II that blackout violations in London carried heavy fines and even jail time. Why? Because a single lit window could guide bombers to an entire neighborhood. Your house with lights isn't just compromising your security, it's compromising everyone's by drawing attention to the entire area. And when looters come to your street because your house is lit, they're not going to leave after hitting just you. Blackout discipline starts before the power goes out. You need blackout curtains, real ones, not the decorative garbage from Target. Military-grade blackout fabric that allows zero light transmission, installed with overlap edges and bottom seals. You need them in every room, and you need to test them at night with interior lights on while someone walks the perimeter outside. If they can see any light leak around edges, through gaps, from under doors, you fix it. Light discipline isn't about comfort, it's about survival. Your lighting protocol during a collapse needs to operate on minimum necessary principle. One room, one light, curtains closed, and only during tasks that absolutely require light. Reading, medical treatment, food preparation, everything else happens in darkness or with night vision adapted eyes. If you need portable light, you use red LEDs, wavelengths above 600 nanometers that preserve night vision and are far less visible from distance. Headlamps with red modes positioned low, pointed down, never white light, never toward windows. For security monitoring, you go full technological asymmetry. Your cameras operate on infrared with no visible light emission. Your perimeter sensors are passive, thermal, acoustic, seismic, nothing that broadcasts your capability. You can see everything happening outside while appearing completely dark and unoccupied. Night vision optics, Gen 3 tubes if you can afford them, Gen 2 if you're budget constrained, give you the ability to move through your house and monitor your property in complete darkness. The enemy thinks you're stumbling blind. You're watching them in crystal clarity. The social engineering component is critical. Before the collapse, you establish darkness protocols with family. Everyone knows when grid power dies, we go dark. No exceptions, no negotiations. You practice this. Monthly drills where you kill the main breaker and operate for 24 hours with full blackout discipline. Your kids learn to navigate by touch. Your spouse learns that the flicker of a phone screen in darkness is a security violation. You identify every light source in your house, LED indicators on electronics, illuminated switches, anything that glows, and you tape over them with black electrical tape or disable them entirely. Remember that scene in A Quiet Place where the family uses specific floorboards to avoid making sound? That's light discipline. Every movement calculated, every potential signal eliminated, surviving by becoming invisible to the threat. The difference is, Abbott family was hiding from monsters that hunted by sound. You're hiding from neighbors who hunt by sight, and they're far more dangerous because they know you're human, know you have what they need, and know you'll die just as easily as they will. Or look at The Walking Dead, Season 1, when they're in the CDC building. The entire structure is lit up like Christmas, and it draws every walker for miles. Shane even says it, "This is a beacon, we might as well be ringing a dinner bell." The show treated that as zombie problem. In reality, it's a human problem. The walkers were mindless. The humans would have been calculating, organized, and far more lethal. That building should have been swarmed by living people within hours. Mistake number 2, the noise nightmare. Sound travels at 343 meters per second at sea level, and human hearing is specifically tuned to detect sudden changes in ambient sound fields. The acoustic shadow effect means that mechanical sounds, like generators, carry further in early morning and evening hours when atmospheric temperature gradients create sound channels that trap and transmit noise horizontally rather than letting it disperse vertically. A 74 decibel source can be clearly audible up to 500 meters away under ideal conditions. That's 1,640 feet. That's 5 city blocks. That's every desperate person in a quarter-mile radius knowing exactly where your generator is running. The frequency signature matters more than the volume. Generator engines produce sound in the 100 to 500 Hz range, low-frequency mechanical rumble that the human ear evolved to detect as something large moving nearby. These frequencies penetrate walls, travel around obstacles, and trigger immediate attention responses. A 2015 study in the Journal of the Acoustical Society found that low-frequency mechanical sounds are detected consciously at lower decibel levels than high-frequency sounds, and they're associated with threat assessment behavior. Your brain hears generator sounds and thinks, machinery, resources, investigate. The tactical situation is even worse than the acoustic one. Running a generator requires fuel. Fuel has to be stored. Stored fuel has to be transported, guarded, and rationed. You're not just announcing that you have power right now. You're announcing that you have enough fuel to run that generator, which means you probably have stockpiles, which means you're a high-value target worth significant risk. During the 2003 Northeast blackout, residential generator theft increased 400% within the first week. The thieves weren't stealing generators that were locked in garages, they were stealing generators that were running because running generators told them exactly where to find fuel, food, and prepared homeowners who might have other valuable supplies. Silent power starts with understanding that you can't eliminate generator sound, but you can manage it to minimize signature. If you absolutely must run a generator, you build a sound enclosure, not the flimsy sheet metal boxes they sell at Harbor Freight, but a proper acoustic baffle chamber. 4 inches of acoustic foam on all interior surfaces, double wall construction with air gap, automotive-grade muffler on the exhaust extended away from the structure, air intake and outlet baffled with acoustic labyrinths that allow airflow while blocking sound transmission. You're aiming to reduce sound by 20 to 30 decibels, taking that 74 decibel machine down to 44 to 54 decibels. Conversation level, something that doesn't carry beyond your immediate property line. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. If you're running a generator during a collapse, you're doing it wrong. The correct solution is battery storage with solar recharge, completely silent, completely passive, no fuel dependency. You need enough battery capacity to run your critical loads, refrigeration, water pumping, communications, lighting, for 72 hours minimum. You need enough solar capacity to recharge batteries during daylight even with suboptimal weather. This isn't about living normal. This is about maintaining critical functions silently, while everyone else announces their capabilities with noise. Your water strategy needs to separate generation from consumption. You don't run your well pump when you need water. You run your well pump during daytime hours when ambient noise is highest. Neighbors still have cars running, people talking, residual city sounds masking your operations. You fill storage tanks, 500 gallons minimum, and then you shut everything down. You consume from stored supply silently. If you must run generators, you run them inside sound-dampened structures for minimum duration during maximum ambient noise periods, and you never, ever run them on predictable schedules that allow people to plan around your power cycles. The acoustic discipline extends to everything. Your doors don't slam, you install soft close hinges, your tools don't clang, you pad your workspace with rubber mats, you move during noisy periods and freeze during silent ones. You become a ghost in your own house, present but undetectable, capable but quiet. This is the difference between prepping and surviving. Preppers buy loud toys and feel powerful. Survivors understand that power is worthless if everyone knows you have it. In The Road, Cormac McCarthy's characters survive by being invisible and silent. They push a shopping cart with wrapped wheels to minimize noise. They avoid roads during quiet periods. Every sound is a death sentence in a world where desperate people hunt other people for food. The movie toned it down because the book version was too bleak for audiences, but the principle holds: sound is signature. Signature is death. Or consider the xenomorphs in Aliens. They hunt by sound and movement. The colonial Marines thought firepower would save them. It didn't. The motion trackers and pulse rifles just told the aliens exactly where the food was. Ripley survived not by fighting, but by becoming undetectable, moving in silence, operating in ways that didn't trigger predator response. Your neighbors aren't aliens, but they're hunting the same way, looking for signs of resources, listening for evidence of capability, moving toward noise that promises survival supplies. Mistake number 3, the smell of stupidity. The human nose contains approximately 400 different olfactory receptors, and smell molecules travel on air currents that can carry them hundreds of meters from their source. Bacon releases thiols, pyrazines, and other volatile organic compounds that are specifically associated with high-fat, high-protein food sources. These aren't just pleasant smells, they're survival signals that trigger immediate hunger response and food-seeking behavior. Studies in chemosensory perception show that food odors activate the amygdala and insula, brain regions associated with emotion and craving, before they're consciously identified. People smell your cooking before they know they smell it, and their bodies are already moving toward the source. The concentration gradient for food odors is affected by humidity, temperature, and air movement, but under typical conditions, strong odors like frying bacon can be detected at distances of 200 to 500 meters, depending on wind direction. That's not your immediate neighbors, that's everyone in a quarter-mile radius. A 2012 study in chemical senses found that hunger significantly increases olfactory sensitivity. starving people can detect food odors at concentrations 30 to 50% lower than satiated people. Translation: the hungrier your neighbors get, the further they can smell your cooking and the more desperate they become to find the source. The psychological component is devastating. Food odors in contexts of scarcity trigger what behavioral economists call deprivation signaling. The person smelling the food doesn't just want it, they feel entitled to it because the presence of food in their sensory environment suggests it's available for consumption. This is why restaurants pump artificial food smells into the street. This is why casinos pipe in specific scents. Smell bypasses rational thought and triggers appetitive behavior. Your neighbors smell bacon and their starving brains scream, "That should be mine," before their conscious minds can evaluate whether taking it is wise, legal, or survivable. Cold food becomes your primary diet during a collapse. No cooking, no heating, no food preparation that generates odor. This means protein bars, canned goods eaten cold, dried fruits, nuts, anything that can be consumed at ambient temperature without preparation. This isn't about comfort. This is about not advertising your food supply to everyone within nose shot. You stockpile food specifically selected for no-cook consumption. Peanut butter, crackers, canned beans, eat them cold, they're fine. Tuna pouches, beef jerky, trail mix. Calories in, no smell out. If you must cook, and eventually you will need hot food for morale and metabolic efficiency, you do it with extreme odor discipline. You cook inside a sealed room with activated carbon air filtration running to scrub odor molecules. You use foods with minimal smell signature: rice, pasta, oatmeal, simple carbohydrates that don't generate the volatile compounds that carry across neighborhoods. You absolutely do not cook meat, fried foods, or anything with high fat content that aerosolizes during cooking. The smell to calorie ratio is catastrophically bad. Your cooking schedule matters as much as your menu. You cook during rain, when humidity keeps odors close and weather keeps people inside. You cook during high wind that disperses smell rapidly instead of letting it pool around your house. You cook at times when ambient odors mask yours. If your neighbors are burning trash or wood for heat, that's your window. You never cook on predictable schedules that allow people to anticipate when your food odors will appear. Randomization prevents pattern recognition. The ultimate solution is odor containment cooking systems. Commercial food service operations use exhaust hoods with carbon filtration for this exact purpose. You can build a scaled-down version, a cooking tent inside your house, negative pressure ventilation pulling air through activated carbon filters, exhaust vented through HEPA and carbon stages before exiting through locations that minimize ground-level dispersal. It's elaborate, it's expensive, and it's the difference between eating hot food safely and ringing the dinner bell for desperate people who outnumber you. In the Book of Eli, Denzel Washington's character eats cold food from cans while traveling through the wasteland. When he does cook, he does it in abandoned structures, far from population, never in his camp, never anywhere. He plans to sleep. The movie doesn't explain this because it assumes audience intelligence. The book it's based on is more explicit. Cooking smells travel, and traveling smells attract predators. Human predators looking for the person carrying enough food to waste it on hot meals. The Walking Dead had it backwards. They'd cook deer, cook fish, have whole barbecues while surrounded by both walkers and hostile humans. The show treated food smell as a walker problem. In reality, walkers are a non-issue. They hunt by sight and sound, not smell, established in the show's own canon. The humans should have been the threat. Every cooked meal should have been a tactical nightmare, but the show needed those campfire bonding moments, so they ignored basic survival logic for emotional storytelling. Mistake number 4, the fortress fallacy. Defensive display theory in evolutionary psychology explains why overt defense signals can trigger attack behavior rather than deterrence. When resources are scarce, visible defenses communicate value rather than threat. A study published in Nature Human Behavior in 2018 found that during resource competition scenarios, participants were more likely to challenge defended resources than undefended ones, because defense signals that something worth taking is present. Your fortifications aren't saying stay away, they're saying valuable items inside, difficulty level, medium. The tactical reality is even worse. Military doctrine distinguishes between hard targets and soft targets, but it also recognizes that the appearance of hardness without actual defensive capability is an invitation to probe. Real hardened targets have overlapping fields of fire, multiple defensive layers, early warning systems, and response capability. Your sandbags and plywood are security theater, visible deterrents with no depth. Experienced attackers recognize security theater immediately because they've probed enough targets to know the difference between real capability and movie props. The game theory is catastrophic for you. In a collapse scenario, attackers have nothing to lose and everything to gain. You have everything to lose and gain nothing from engagement. This asymmetry means they can afford to take risks you can't. They can probe, test, wait, and try again. You have to defend successfully every single time. They only have to succeed once. By advertising your defenses, you've invited them to play a game where the odds are stacked against you from the start, and every round they play gives them more information about your capabilities, your patterns, and your weaknesses. The grey man principle applies to houses as much as people. You want to look exactly as damaged, depleted, and worthless as every other house on your street. If 3 houses have broken windows, yours has broken windows too. Carefully broken from the inside, selecting windows that don't compromise security but create the appearance of vulnerability. If houses have been looted, yours looks looted too. Front door ajar, visible from the street, deadbolted from inside but appearing forced. Trash scattered in your yard, maybe some spray paint. Nothing left or already checked 8/15th with a date that makes it look like you've been cleaned out. Your real defenses are invisible. Reinforced door frames hidden behind standard-looking doors. Security film on windows that looks like glass but holds when hit. Locks that can't be bumped or picked. Interior fortification, a safe room that doesn't look like a safe room, just looks like a bedroom or closet, but has steel core door, reinforced walls, and can be held indefinitely with stored supplies, communications, and defensive capability. You've created multiple defensive layers, but none of them are visible from outside. The perimeter security is psychological rather than physical. You want approaching threats to think you're not worth the effort. Broken toys in the yard, garbage bags piled by the curb, car on blocks in the driveway, maybe a damaged roof that looks storm damaged but is actually intact. Every signal says, this house has been through hell, there's nothing here, move along. You're hiding wealth behind the appearance of poverty, capability behind the appearance of destitution. The social engineering component is critical. You need to look like you've already been victimized. If someone approaches, you play desperate. They took everything. I don't even have water. Do you have any food you can spare? You're pathetic, non-threatening, already defeated. They mark you as a non-target and move on looking for houses that still have supplies. Meanwhile, your hidden stockpiles, your concealed defenses, your actual capability remains invisible, unknown, and therefore safe. Remember the Road Warrior? Lord Humongous and his raiders attacked the fortified oil compound because the fortress advertises value. The compound's defenders are outnumbered, outgunned, and eventually overwhelmed because they made themselves a target. The final escape only works because Max creates a decoy, something that looks valuable while the real prize slips away invisible. The lesson isn't build better walls. The lesson is don't advertise that you have something worth walls. Or look at Red Dawn, the original. The Wolverines survive not by defending fixed positions, but by appearing to be refugees, blending in, hiding weapons and supplies in caches rather than fortified bases. When they do defend, it's from positions that look worthless, abandoned buildings, wilderness hideouts, places nobody thinks to look because there's no visible indication of value. The moment they establish a pattern or a visible base, they get hit. Mistake number 5. The hygiene holocaust. Human olfactory discrimination is extraordinarily sensitive to chemical signatures associated with hygiene products. Commercial soaps, shampoos, and detergents contain synthetic fragrances, combinations of aldehyde compounds, terpenes, and esters, designed to be detectable and pleasant at low concentrations. These aren't natural odors. In a collapse environment where industrial chemistry has stopped, these artificial scents are as anomalous as a radio signal in deep space. They announce artificial production, supply chains, stored resources. The contrast effect amplifies the signal. When everyone smells like unwashed human, a combination of skin bacteria metabolizing sweat into isovaleric acid and other volatile organic acids, someone who smells clean doesn't just smell different, they smell wrong, out of place, and therefore worth investigating. A 2014 study in chemical senses found that humans are particularly sensitive to odor contrasts in social contexts, using smell to assess resource access and social status. In a collapse, clean smell equals high status equals target. The bacteriological reality matters too. When you're the only person maintaining hygiene in a population that isn't, you're maintaining a different microbiome. Your skin bacteria are different, your breath is different. These differences are detectable at close range and within 10 feet, and they communicate that you have access to clean water, a resource more valuable than gold in a collapse scenario. Water means food preparation, wound treatment, disease prevention. Water means survival. Your clean smell tells them you have the most critical resource and they will kill you for it. You match the ambient hygiene level of your environment. If your neighbors smell unwashed, you smell unwashed. This doesn't mean abandoning hygiene entirely. That leads to disease, infection, and death. It means strategic filth. You maintain core hygiene, teeth brushed with baking soda instead of scented toothpaste, critical areas washed with unscented soap or just water, wounds cleaned and treated. But you smell like everyone else. You wear the same outer clothes for days. You stop using deodorant. You let natural body odor accumulate to socially normal levels for the current environment. The technical approach is odor layering. You maintain cleanliness underneath where it matters for health and mask it with environmental odors on top where it matters for security. You handle firewood, letting smoke permeate your clothes. You garden, getting soil and plant material on your hands and clothing. You deliberately add ambient dirt, dust, and neutral environmental odors that match what everyone else smells like. You're clean enough to avoid infection, dirty enough to blend in. Your hygiene products go unscented or natural. Baking soda for teeth and body odor control. It's antibacterial, odorless, and doesn't broadcast resource access. Vinegar for washing. It's antimicrobial, makes you smell sour like fermentation rather than floral like commercial products. Soap made from wood ash and animal fat if you have the capability, or unscented Castile soap as a backup. Nothing that smells like civilization. Nothing that announces you have supply chains they don't. The strategic timing matters. You can maintain higher hygiene levels inside your secure area where odors don't escape, but anytime you might encounter other humans, perimeter checks, supply runs, neighborhood contact, you layer on the filth first. You create an olfactory camouflage that matches your visual camouflage. You become undetectable to noses as well as eyes. The person inside your house can be clean. The person they smell outside your house needs to smell like the collapse is winning. In The Walking Dead, the survivors figured out early that covering themselves in walker gore made them invisible to walkers. What the show never explored is that the same principle applies to humans. Covering yourself in the ambient smell of your environment makes you invisible to human detection. When Carol went undercover in Terminus, she didn't shower first. She rolled in dirt and blood, matched the ambient horror, became undetectable until she was ready to strike. Or look at Fury Road. Max is filthy throughout the entire film, covered in desert dust and dried blood and the accumulated grime of survival. So is everyone else. When the war boys talk about being shiny and chrome, they're talking about death and transcendence, not hygiene. The survivors who make it, Max, Furiosa, the wives, are the ones who understand that cleanliness is vulnerability. They maintain enough hygiene to function, but they match the wasteland's aesthetic because standing out gets you killed. Mistake number 6, the trash betrayal. Garbology, the archaeological study of waste, is a legitimate academic discipline because trash reveals consumption patterns with extraordinary accuracy. A 1973 study by William Rafferty at the University of Arizona demonstrated that household waste analysis could predict income level, dietary habits, and purchasing patterns with over 80% accuracy. Your garbage is a data stream broadcasting your resource access, consumption habits, and supply stockpiles to anyone with the intelligence to read it. The psychology of trash analysis in survival contexts is even more targeted. During resource scarcity, people engage in what anthropologists call refuse reading, examining waste for signals of hidden resources. This behavior is documented in every major famine and collapse scenario throughout history. During the siege of Leningrad, Soviet authorities analyzed household trash to identify citizens who might have hidden food stores. During the Great Depression, hobos developed marking systems that included trash analysis to identify houses worth approaching for help. Your trash isn't garbage, it's intelligence. The chemical signature compounds the problem. Food packaging retains odors even after contents are consumed. That coffee bag you threw out, it's still releasing aromatic compounds, volatile oils that can be detected from 50 meters away by someone with a functional nose and strong motivation. The kerosene can, petroleum distillates that announce you have fuel. The medicine bottles, They rattle when moved, creating acoustic signatures. Every piece of your trash is a breadcrumb leading back to your supply cache. Zero visible trash policy. Everything you consume has to be processed in ways that eliminate intelligence value. Paper and cardboard get burned completely, hot enough that no readable text survives, preferably broken into small pieces before burning so no package labels remain intact. Ashes get scattered, not piled, dispersed across your property, or flushed into your drainage system. No readable trash goes into your burn pile intact. Metal and glass require different handling. Cans get thoroughly cleaned, labels removed and burned, then crushed flat and buried in a deep pit on your property. Minimum 3 feet deep, beyond casual detection, mixed with soil and rocks. Glass gets broken into small pieces with a hammer, inside a bag to contain fragments and prevent noise, then buried similarly. Nothing recyclable gets thrown out where it can be analyzed. The goal is to eliminate the evidence of your consumption patterns entirely. Packaging becomes a pre-collapse consideration. You repackage supplies into generic, unmarked containers before the collapse. Your coffee goes from branded bags into plain mylar pouches with no labels. Your freeze-dried meals get transferred to unmarked containers. Your medicine goes into generic pill bottles with no pharmaceutical markings. When you consume these items and dispose of containers, they tell no story about what they contained or where it came from. This requires planning before everything goes to hell, but it's the difference between operational security and operational suicide. The strategic approach is matching ambient trash patterns. If you must put trash out, it needs to look like everyone else's. Empty junk food wrappers, planted deliberately. Use toilet paper, keep some for this purpose. Broken household items that communicate poverty rather than preparedness. You're creating false trash that matches expected patterns, while your real consumption evidence is buried or burned beyond recognition. You're feeding the intelligence stream with disinformation while eliminating your actual signature. In No Country for Old Men, Anton Chigurh tracks Llewellyn Moss through multiple states by following evidence trails, receipts, packaging, even the brand of beer Moss drinks. The film treats this as psychopath genius, but it's actually just basic tracking. Moss never thought about the intelligence trail he was leaving because most people don't. Every purchase, every consumption choice, every piece of trash is a beacon saying, I was here, I had this, I'm going there. Chigurh just had the patience to read the signs, or consider The Walking Dead's Alexandria community. Clean streets, organized trash removal, everything neat and proper, all of which announced, we have functioning systems, plentiful resources, and organized society. It made them a target for the saviors, the wolves, every hostile group in the region. Meanwhile, groups like the Hilltop survived longer by looking depleted and desperate. Their trash piles were strategic, visible poverty that made them look like low-value targets even when they had hidden supplies. Mistake number 7, the schedule suicide. Pattern recognition is one of the most fundamental capabilities of human cognition. The brain's fusiform gyrus and associated neural networks are specifically evolved to detect recurring patterns in visual, temporal, and behavioral data. A 2016 study in Nature Neuroscience found that the human brain can detect patterns after as few as 3 repetitions and can predict future behavior based on observed patterns with over 70% accuracy after 5 repetitions. Your routine isn't professional security, it's a countdown timer telling attackers when and where you'll be vulnerable. Military doctrine explicitly addresses this through tactical variability, the principle that predictable patterns create exploitable vulnerabilities. Special operations training emphasizes randomization of patrol routes, timing, and procedures specifically because pattern recognition is how insurgents successfully ambush trained forces. The Taliban in Afghanistan killed more coalition troops through pattern analysis than through direct combat. Watching bases, noting shift changes, identifying routine movements, and exploiting the predictability of military schedules. The psychology of surveillance reveals why this works. Observation doesn't require constant monitoring. It requires enough data points to extrapolate patterns. A hostile observer watching your house for just 20 minutes each day over a week can build a detailed schedule of your activities. They don't need to see everything. They need to see enough repetitions to predict what you'll do next. Once they have your pattern, they control the engagement. They choose timing, positioning, and approach based on your schedule, making you react to their initiative instead of maintaining your own security posture. Randomization becomes your operational philosophy. Every action that must be repeated gets randomized in time, route, and method. Your perimeter checks happen at irregular intervals, 05:45 one day, 07:30 the next, 1420 the day after. Your routes vary, sometimes clockwise, sometimes counterclockwise, sometimes random spot checks instead of full circuits. Your methods change, sometimes visual inspection, sometimes listening from inside, sometimes skipping entirely and relying on sensors. You never do the same thing the same way twice in a row. The tactical approach is unpredictable variability within necessary structure. You still need to eat, sleep, maintain security, but the timing and method need to vary beyond pattern recognition thresholds. You eat at different times daily, varying by at least 90 minutes window. You sleep in different locations within your house on rotating schedule. You use different doors for exit and entry. You create deliberate inconsistency that prevents observers from predicting your movements. Your security protocols need deception layers. Sometimes you do perimeter checks that are actually decoys. You go out the front, walk north, but you're watching for surveillance rather than checking fence lines. Sometimes you do internal monitoring only, watching through concealed observation points without exposing yourself. Sometimes you send decoys, bags of trash or objects move to appear like human activity while you remain inside. The goal is making surveillance useless by ensuring no 2 days provide the same intelligence value. The long-term strategy is counter-surveillance awareness. Before you establish any routine, you assume you're being watched and you pattern your observers. You do your perimeter check, but you're watching for repeated vehicles, people who appear multiple days, observation positions that provide sight lines to your house. When you identify potential surveillance, you don't confront it, you use it, feeding false patterns while varying your actual security activities. You turn their intelligence collection against them by controlling what they see. Heat, Michael Mann's 1995 masterpiece, has Neil McCauley's crew operating on the principle, never do the same thing the same way twice. They change routes, vary timing, randomize procedures specifically because they know law enforcement is patterning them. The one time they break this rule, Waingro's repeated behavior and predictable location, it gets them killed. The movie's central philosophy is that discipline without variability is just organized suicide, or The Bourne Identity, where Jason Bourne survives specifically because he has no pattern. Every safe house is temporary, every routine is disrupted, every movement is randomized. When Bourne does establish a pattern, meeting Marie at a specific time, that's when Treadstone nearly kills him. The moment predictability enters his behavior, he becomes vulnerable. His survival depends on being impossible to pattern, impossible to predict, impossible to ambush because nobody knows what he'll do next, including sometimes himself. Mistake number 8, the social media suicide. Day 0 minus 180, 6 months before everything goes to hell and you're excited about your preparations. You've been at this for 3 years now, reading forums, watching YouTube preppers, building your stockpile. You've got a year's worth of food, water filtration, solar panels, the works. You're proud of it. You've worked hard, spent money wisely, built something that will keep your family alive when the system fails. So, you share it. Not with everyone, you're not stupid, just with your prepper group on Facebook. Just finished my pantry reorganization. Check out this setup. Photo shows your shelving units loaded with number 10 cans, Mylar bags labeled and dated. A beautiful organizational system that took you 3 weekends to perfect. 47 likes, 23 comments. Goals! This is amazing, bro. Wish my wife would let me do this. 2 weeks later, you post your new water filtration system. Berkey with extra filters, backup hand pump, whole setup visible in your basement. More likes, more validation. You're helping people, inspiring them, being part of the community. You post your solar array, just went off-grid capable. The panels on your roof, visible in the photo along with your house number on the curb and your truck in the driveway. You post your garden, growing my own food, full backyard visible, property layout clear, fence line shown, neighboring houses in background. You never post your exact address, you never say your full name, you think you're being operational security conscious. What you've actually done is create a detailed intelligence file on yourself that includes your supply inventory, your property layout, your defensive capabilities, and enough metadata to geolocate your exact address within 3 minutes using Google Maps and property records. Day 1 of the collapse. Your phone is dead, but theirs aren't yet. They're scrolling through 6 months of cached prepper group posts they downloaded when they saw this coming. They've got your photos, your geolocation data from the XIF metadata you forgot to strip, your property layout, your inventory list. They've been planning this raid since your second post. You've been teaching them exactly what you have and where to find it, giving them a detailed brief on your preps like you're their logistics coordinator. Hour 36, and there are 12 of them outside your house. Not random looters, organized raiders who targeted you specifically because you advertised your preparedness to an online audience of 4,000 people, any one of whom could be desperate, dangerous, or both. Your OPSEC failed 6 months ago. You just didn't realize you were already dead until they kicked in your door. Digital metadata is a surveillance layer most people don't understand exists. Every photo taken with a smartphone embeds EXIF data, GPS coordinates accurate to within 10 meters, device ID, timestamp, camera settings. A 2019 study by the Pew Research Center found that 71% of social media users don't disable geotagging on their photos, and 89% don't know how to remove EXIF metadata before posting. Your prep photos aren't just pictures, they're intelligence packages with embedded geolocation, accessible to anyone with basic digital literacy. The social network analysis compounds the vulnerability. Security researchers at Cambridge Analytica demonstrated that social media posts can be triangulated with public records, property databases, and satellite imagery to identify specific addresses with 94% accuracy, even when posters believe they're maintaining anonymity. Your prepper group membership lists, your liked pages, your comment history, your friend connections, all of this creates a social graph that maps your identity, location, and resource access. You think you're anonymous. You're a file folder. The archival permanence is the killer. Internet Archive, cached pages, screenshot tools, downloaded group data, nothing posted online ever truly disappears. Security researchers call this data remanence, the persistence of digital information beyond intentional deletion. Even if you delete your posts pre-collapse, someone may have archived them. Even if you delete your account, the data persists on servers, in backups, in cached copies. That photo you posted 8 months ago? It's still accessible, still geotagged, still showing anyone who looks exactly what you have and where you keep it. Total digital silence regarding your preparations, 0 posts about preps, 0 photos of supplies, 0 discussions of security measures, 0 participation in online prepper communities using any account that can be connected to your real identity. This isn't paranoia, this is acknowledging that the internet is permanent and adversarial. Every post is intelligence you're handing to potential threats. Every photo is reconnaissance data you're providing for free. Silence is survival. If you've already posted, and statistically, if you're reading this and you prep, you probably have, you do damage control immediately. Delete every post, every photo, every comment that references your preparations. Use tools like EXIF tool to check what metadata was embedded in photos before you posted them. Request data deletion from platform providers under GDPR or CCPA regulations if applicable. Contact group administrators and request removal from member lists. Check Internet Archive for cached versions and request removal. This won't eliminate everything, data persistence is real, but it reduces your exposure significantly. The communication protocol going forward is analog and air-gapped. In-person conversations only for anything prep-related. No phone discussions. Phones are recording devices in your pocket, even when you think they're off. No emails. Email is plain text transmitted across networks and stored permanently on servers you don't control. If you must coordinate with other prepared individuals, you do it face-to-face, in locations without surveillance, using code words for sensitive topics. The Cold War tradecraft wasn't paranoia, it was understanding that information security requires technological isolation. The long-term strategy is building 2 personas. Your visible online presence that shows normal consumption, no special preparations, standard suburban life, and your actual capability that exists entirely offline, undocumented, invisible to digital surveillance. You post pictures of restaurant meals, not food storage. You share vacation photos, not property security. You maintain an online presence that communicates normal consumer, no special resources, not worth targeting. Your real preps exist in a space that the internet never touches. In Mr. Robot, Elliot Alderson's entire mission is built on the understanding that digital footprints are permanent and exploitable. Every character who trusts digital security gets compromised. Every encrypted message gets cracked. Every secure system gets penetrated. The show's central premise is that true security requires either perfect digital hygiene or complete digital absence. The characters who survive are the ones who understand that anything online is accessible to anyone with sufficient motivation and capability, or consider person of interest, where the machine has access to every camera, every phone, every digital transaction. The irrelevant numbers, people about to die who aren't threats to national security, are tracked through their digital exhaust, social media posts, credit card transactions, phone locations. Finch and Reese survive specifically because they maintain minimal digital presence. No social media, no digital paper trail, cash transactions only, analog communication. The show's premise is surveillance realism, the idea that modern digital life makes privacy impossible unless you actively architect its absence. Mistake number 9, the vehicle vanity. Day 8, fuel is becoming the new currency. Gas stations that still have power are charging $20 per gallon, cash only, rationed to 5 gallons per customer, and the lines stretch for blocks. Most stations are dry. The ones that aren't are guarded by people with guns, sometimes police, sometimes not. And the fights over fuel have killed at least a dozen people in your city already. Your truck sits in your driveway. It's your pride and joy. Ford F-250 Super Duty, lifted 6 inches, 35-inch all-terrain tires, heavy-duty bumpers, front and rear, roof rack loaded with recovery gear, jerry cans mounted on the sides, empty now, but still visible, LED light bars, winch, snorkel intake, skid plates, the full overlanding setup you spent 3 years and $40,000 building. It's capable, rugged, ready for anything. It's also a billboard advertising that you have fuel, you have mobility, and you have the resources to maintain an expensive vehicle when most people are walking because they can't afford gas, or their cars are broken and they can't get parts. You've been keeping it in the garage with the door closed, only taking it out for critical supply runs. But even parked in your driveway for the 10 minutes it takes you to load supplies, it draws attention. Your neighbors see it, passers-by see it. People notice that while they're pushing bicycles and walking to scavenge for food, you're driving a $70,000 tactical truck that looks like it could drive through a war zone. Hour 192, and someone followed you home from your last supply run. Not immediately, they're smarter than that. They waited until you parked, noted your address, went and got friends. Now there are 5 of them, and they've got a flatbed tow truck they stole from a dealership 3 days ago. They're not trying to break into your house, they're stealing your truck from your driveway while you sleep. By the time you hear the diesel engine and realize what's happening, they're already pulling away with $70,000 worth of your mobility, your capability, and your survival options. You run outside with your AR-15 ready to defend your property. They're already 3 blocks away. You're going to shoot at a moving vehicle in a residential neighborhood? You're going to chase them on foot? You're standing in your driveway in your underwear, watching your truck disappear, realizing that all that prep gear you mounted so proudly just told everyone you were a high-value target worth organized theft. Status signaling theory in evolutionary psychology explains that humans advertise resource access through costly displays, peacock tails, luxury goods, and in modern context, expensive vehicles. A 2018 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that observers accurately assess resource availability based on vehicle choice, with modified trucks and off-road capable vehicles signaling both wealth and preparedness. Your tactical truck doesn't just say, I have money. It says, I'm prepared for collapse, I have fuel, I have mobility, I'm worth robbing. The opportunity cost calculation shifts dramatically in scarcity. During normal times, stealing a vehicle involves significant risk for moderate reward. You might get a few $1,000s from a chop shop. During collapse, stealing a functional vehicle with fuel means survival capability, mobility to reach resources, ability to escape danger zones. The risk-reward ratio inverts. The violence potential escalates proportionally. FBI statistics from disaster zones show that vehicle theft rates increase 300 to 500% within the first 2 weeks of major disasters, with violent carjackings increasing even more dramatically. The tactical vehicle problem is compounded by parts scarcity. Your lifted truck with specialized tires and modifications. When supply chains are broken, those parts are impossible to replace. One broken component renders the entire system immobile. Meanwhile, a stock sedan uses common parts that can be cannibalized from any of 1,000 abandoned vehicles. Your tactical superiority is actually mechanical vulnerability disguised as capability. Complexity is fragility when you can't access the industrial base that supports it. The gray vehicle principle: you want something functional, reliable, and completely forgettable. A 10 to 15-year-old sedan in common colors, white, gray, beige, Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, Ford Fusion, models that exist in massive numbers, use common parts, and are mechanically simple enough to maintain with basic tools. No modifications, no upgrades, no distinguishing features. Minor cosmetic damage is actually beneficial. A dent in the fender, faded paint, the appearance of a vehicle that barely runs and isn't worth stealing. You're hiding capability behind the appearance of mediocrity. Your vehicle maintenance happens invisibly. The engine is perfectly tuned, oil changed regularly, critical systems maintained meticulously. But all of this happens inside your garage where nobody sees. From outside, your vehicle looks neglected, barely functional, not worth a second glance. The paint is faded because you let it fade or you deliberately degraded it. The interior is cluttered with trash and old coffee cups, security theatre suggesting the owner doesn't care and probably doesn't have resources. Meanwhile, underneath this camouflage, you've got a mechanically perfect vehicle with full tank and spare parts stockpiled. The fuel storage happens off-vehicle. Those mounted jerry cans on your tactical truck? They're advertisements. Your actual fuel storage is hidden in your garage in sealed containers, rotated regularly with stabilizer added, stored properly away from ignition sources. You never transport more fuel than you need for the specific trip. You never display fuel capacity externally. When you need to refuel, you do it in your garage with the door closed, not at gas stations where people are watching who has fuel and who doesn't. The ultimate strategy is having multiple vehicle options at different capability levels. Your visible daily driver is the grey sedan that looks worthless. Your actual bug-out vehicle is stored in a garage or under a cover, looking non-functional, maybe even registered as non-operational to avoid attracting attention. You maintain capability without displaying it. When you need to move, you can. Until then, you look like someone who can barely afford to keep a beta running. Mad Max understood this backwards. Max's Interceptor is a distinctive, high-performance, immediately recognizable vehicle that tells everyone, I have fuel, I have mechanical capability, chase me and kill me for my resources. That works in a movie where the protagonist has plot armor. In reality, Max would have been killed in the first 10 minutes by someone who saw his vehicle and wanted it. The survivors in Mad Max should be driving rust buckets that look like they'll break down any second while secretly being mechanically sound. The Book of Eli got it right. Denzel's character walks. When he does ride, it's in other people's vehicles, never his own. He's invisible, non-threatening, appearing to have nothing worth taking. When Carnegie and his raiders see Eli, they see a homeless wanderer with a backpack, not someone carrying the most valuable book in the wasteland. The vehicle you don't have can't be stolen. The mobility you don't display doesn't make you a target.